Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are doing well. I've been on the road for a couple weeks for work, so I haven't made much progress on the car, but I got this weekend off finally, so we are getting some things done. We're gonna get started on the transmission today. We're gonna be pulling this thing apart, doing a full refresh. Here I've got a complete carbon Synchro master rebuild or refresh kit from Synchrotech. Got all the Synchros, all new bearings, sliders, all seals, the Synchro springs, new clip for the bearing, and of course I went with the MFactory 4.9 final drive. This thing does have an MFactory helical LSD in there, so we're going to spice it up just a little bit with the 4.9. The stock GSR is a 4.4 final drive, and corner exit is really killing me. It's either too high for second gear or too low for third gear. So getting out of corners in third gear is really tough because we're too low in the RPM range and it's slow to get up into the efficient range. So with the 4.9, it's gonna be a lot shorter gearing. So it's gonna place us in a much better torque range so that we can accelerate out of corners and pull ourselves out much faster. So today we're gonna put all of this in there and hopefully everything goes smooth. So I got all the accessory items, the brackets, all the little bolts and everything removed off of here. Got the two detent bolts with the springs and the detent balls removed. There's a bolt hole right here. This bolt goes through it. It actually goes through the case and into the reverse gear shaft in there. Got the big nut off on top here, which is going to expose the circlip that you need to release so that the gear set will drop. Should allow me then to just pull the case off of the clutch housing down here. Let's see if we can hear the counter shaft drop when I spread it. There it goes, dropped. Got the housing off the clutch housing here. That bolt I was telling you guys about that goes through the housing here, which is this guy. It will go through the housing and right here into the shaft that holds the reverse gear. So that's why you have to remove this guy before that housing comes off, because of course then it would be impossible to remove all that altogether. If you notice, I've got the ball bearing upgrade. In stock form, this would come with tapered roller bearings, but when I initially put this thing together, I upgraded to the ball bearings there. Right here, you have your main shaft, or your input shaft, you can call it. And then this shaft right here with this gear set, this is your counter shaft. First gear on the main shaft would be hidden right down here, real small. And then in between first and second is this straight cut gear right here. That is your reverse. That's why you have that loud whining sound when you're in reverse. It sounds like a dog box because it has straight cut teeth. So here on the main shaft, continuing, you have second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and fifth gear. And then on the counter shaft side, of course, you just have the corresponding gears: fifth, fourth, third, second, and first. So these are all your shift forks here. There's 3 of them. To remove all this, I'll go ahead and remove the shift selector assembly down here, remove the reverse gear and all of its bracketry there, and then the shift forks and the gear sets will all lift out at the same time, and then we can then lift the differential out of here. Alright, so I've got everything out of the case here. You can see the input shaft bearing right here. This was actually one of the known issues. I did have some bearing noise. That is getting replaced. Every single bearing in here is getting replaced. Here you can see the magnet here, some good chunks of metal there. A little bit of that is fairly normal, but you can see that the fluid is actually pretty darn dirty there. So obviously it's gonna get all new fluid. This is gonna get cleaned out. This ring gear is gonna get swapped out for the 4.9, which is sitting right over there. Your 1 and 2 synchros on the counter shaft there. So this is your third gear synchro fourth gear, fifth gear, and then your reverse. This rebuild kit here is going to allow me to replace all the synchros and the sliders. So you got the slider for 5 in reverse, 3 and 4, and then 1 and 2 here. So all those 3 components get replaced. All the bearings, you got 2 here, 1 here, and then 1 and 2 there as well. So total 5. And then of course all of the seals. And then when you're swapping out the final drive, it's not just a quick change of the ring gear on the differential. You got to switch out this gear right here too. This is the gear that meshes with the ring gear. But the thing about this is it's not a simple remove this gear and then put the new one on. This gear is machined onto this entire counter shaft. So when you buy a new final drive, of course you get the ring gear, but then you get an entirely new counter shaft. I think what we'll do first is we'll take apart the main shaft, and then once we get that all taken apart, we'll go ahead and inspect the hub that's right under the sliders here. We'll inspect, of course, the sliders as well, the synchros, and kind of just get an idea of the condition of the trans. And then we'll go ahead and clean everything off at the parts washer, make sure it's all nice and clean, and then we'll move the counter shaft, and then we'll move to the diff, and then we'll move to cleaning the housings and replacing the bearings over there. At that point, everything can start going back together. So upon inspection of my shift forks, I found a little issue here. This is the 3/4 shift fork. This is the bottom of the shift fork here. This is where it would engage, and it would push this way for third gear and upwards for fourth gear. For third gear engagement, you can see that it's worn into the shift forks right here, all the way around here. But this is where you're gonna have issues with grinding going into third gear. Now, most people will think that the third gear synchro is bad and that's what's causing the grind, but most likely in my case, which I did have a grind, this is the reason why. All right, and the main shaft is completely reassembled. Looks really good. Everything went together real nice. All right, up next is the counter shaft. This might be a little bit more difficult to remove or take apart than the main shaft over there, but we'll go ahead and zip this off and start taking this apart. All right, I got a little ahead of myself. I got the counter shaft all taken apart here. I just threw this thing into the press and then just pressed everything out at the same time and then popped them off one by one. Again, everything is in order from left to right, top to bottom. Only 2 synchros on this end, first and second, and both the synchros look pretty decent. So again, those I might be able to keep as spares. Go ahead and clean everything off now, and then this thing gets replaced by the new one over there. Assembly can happen right after that. All right, got the counter shaft done. Everything went back together perfectly fine. Counter shaft done. Main shaft, it's under this box right there. That's done. Now I think I can move on to the diff. I got the diff in the vise here. These bolts, beware, they are left-hand thread, so it's actually righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. So don't go ruining your ring gear bolts. Okay, I got the ring gear removed. We'll just go ahead, slide this bad boy on slowly, rotate it and get it in place, line up the holes, and then I could start threading the 10 bolts. Again, left-hand thread. All right, we're back in the shop now. I actually took the rest of the night off because I got to a spot where I couldn't make any more progress, and that was because of the diff Torquing down the bolts was a little bit difficult with one person. Putting this thing inside the vise, this thing would just want to jump out of it. I brought this back to the garage, had Brandon help me out. We got the ring gear torqued down. It's all good now, so everything here, all the internals are good to go. Last step, which is I'm not looking forward to, is pulling the bearings out, all the seals, and then cleaning all of this gunk inside of here. I'm really not looking forward to the cleaning part no one ever wants to do, but it's super important. We gotta clean it, make sure all the impurities and dirt and grime is out of there, so we have a perfectly good running transmission. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, making good progress. Got the new input shaft bearing in. There's a new input shaft seal right below that. And then the new counter shaft roller bearing here. And a new axle seal there. Everything is super clean, as you can tell. The magnet was cleaned off too, so we're all good there. This half is pretty much done, so it's ready to accept everything over there. Except for, of course, we need the new shift fork for the 3 and 4. Up next is cleaning out this half, which is quite a mess, so we'll get to it.
A few moments later.
All right, and just like that, got this case half cleaned out. After this, now we're gonna put the differential in here, and then we're gonna measure the thrust clearance for the differential, and then also we're gonna do the main shaft. Because there is a new input shaft bearing, there's slight tolerances from the manufacturer of the bearing, so you might not always get the same height of the bearing. Anytime you replace the bearing, you have to check your thrust clearance for the main shaft, and then adjust the shim, which is going to be this guy all the way at the bottom there, accordingly. I think the spec is between 4 thousandths to 7 thousandths. I've got the toolkit right over here, and I'll show you guys exactly how to use it and how I'm going to measure it. And then once we get a new shift fork, we can go ahead and do the final assembly. I got the diff placed inside the trans. It's got 4 bolts holding the case together, so everything is nice and sealed. And now I can measure the shim clearance, and I actually can't even get my smallest one, which is 0.03 millimeters, and the spec is basically 0 to 0.1 millimeters. With this case, it closes up perfectly fine. It's not like the shim is too thick and it's preventing the case from closing. We'll go ahead and open this up again, take the diff out, we'll put the main shaft in, and then we'll set up the main shaft thrust clearance tools and figure out what we have for clearance there. Like I said before, because of the new bearing that's in there, now we have to check thrust clearance in here. Basically the amount that the main shaft moves in and out inside the transmission. What we have here is a kit from 1320, just this, 150 bucks. It's insane. So this is all steel here. There's a big giant steel block basically, and another steel block with just holes drilled into it. Our clearance, our thrust clearance, is actually a little bit too big. We're about 5 thousandths too big, so we're going to have to pull this apart. We'll take the shim that's currently in there out, find out how thick it is, and then basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the thickness of the shim that's already in here, and then we're going to add however much thickness we decide we want up here. So we're sitting at 12 thousandths. The spec is between 4 to 7. We can shoot somewhere around 5 to 6 thousandths. So we're at 12 now, and if we want to shoot for 6 thousandths, we need to add another 6 thousandths to whatever the thickness of the shim that's already in here. And then that should bring us to exactly 6 thousandths clearance. And that's where we're going to end this video. We are as far as we can go. We can't really go any farther. We've got, you know, the main shaft put together, the counter shaft, we got our diff. Our shim clearance for the diff is good, but the main shaft thrust clearance is not good, so we got to get a new shim for that. 3 and 4 shift fork is bad, so we're waiting on one of those. Once I have everything in hand, I'll go ahead and assemble everything, put this thing together, and then we should be good. So we're making some good progress on the Civic. Hopefully we can get this thing done soon. Charlie should be working on refreshing the motor right now. So once he's done with that, I'll be done with this, and then I can run up there, pick that up, mate them together, and throw it in the car, and hopefully we'll be ready for a track day. So if you guys enjoyed the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them down in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And of course, if you guys want to stay up to date with this build and probably this transmission, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay safe, stay smooth. I'll see you guys in the next video.